walk with me. And as we wander down the crowded street, even if we're shuffling our feet, you make me never want to miss a beat. We're meant to be. And if you lie with me under the sycamore tree, whether we're high or low, there's nowhere else I wanna go. Hold my hand, fall in love with footprints in the sand, and kiss each other while we watch the band. And everyone who knows us understands we're meant to be. And if you lie with me under the sycamore tree, whether we're high or low, there's nowhere else I wanna go. So walk with me as we wander down the crowded street, even if we're shuffling our feet. You make me never wanna miss a beat, never miss a beat. And if you lie with me under the sycamore tree, whether we're high or low, there's nowhere else I wanna go. And if you lie with me under the sycamore tree, whether we're high or low, there's nowhere else I wanna go. So walk with me, walk with me.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City of Cedar Falls Committee of the Whole meeting. I will call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Schultz,
Here.
Latta,
Here.
Cruz,
Here.
Hawbaker,
Here.
Ianfield,
Here.
Chrisman, here, Dunn, Councilmember Dunn, absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 1, we have a update presentation from Grow Cedar Valley, and if you guys are good, we'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present some updates to you tonight. We are grateful for the opportunity to work with Cedar Falls in economic and community development. And tonight we're going to present some updates on the work that we've done in the last several months. We've got Lisa Skubel here. She's going to talk about our external business development that we are doing. Adrienne Miller is going to share more about what she's doing locally with our existing businesses. And then Stephanie Detweiler is going to share some updates on what we're doing in terms of talent and workforce development. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. Just to reiterate Katie's comments, we appreciate the opportunity to provide an update on the economic development efforts Grow Cedar Valley is leading on behalf of the City of Cedar Falls, though I'm sure some of you hear it more often than not with your conversations with Shane Graham. So if this is repetitive, that's a good thing because we're all communicating, right? Since our last report, Grow Cedar Valley has actively pursued new business growth and investment opportunities. Since December, which is about the last time we reported, we've engaged with 17 new prospects for Cedar Falls, representing over $274 million in potential capital investment. We continue to find in-person engagement is the most cost-effective way to connect with companies. Well, didn't like it during the pandemic when everything had to be virtual, so we're glad to be able to come back strong with our in-person visits. That's why lead generation trips remain a key part of Grow Cedar Valley's strategy. Like any sales process, begin with a wide funnel reaching out to hundreds of companies and narrowing that down to those that have a serious interest in our communities. For example, our West Coast lead generation trip began with a list of over 1,000 companies, which were selected based on growth patterns, industry news, and digital research. Outreach is conducted by phone and email with an average of 5 contact attempts per company, targeting C-level executives to determine 3 things. 1, whether they have an expansion plan. 2, would they consider Iowa for the next project? And 3, whether they are open to an in-person or virtual visit. This effort resulted in 5 new business opportunities on the West Coast. Out of those initial outreach, you'll see resolved 325 records, which include dead ends like wrong number or non-relevant subsidiaries. Our East Coast trip followed a similar approach, starting with over 1,500 companies and resulting in 4 new business opportunities, 2 of which were already exploring visits due to immediate expansion needs. Getting companies to commit to spend millions of dollars is a big undertaking, but sometimes it just starts out with a list of companies and finding just that one. If we're doing a lead generation, all we're looking is just for that one project amongst all those companies who is currently planning an expansion plan within the next 24 months. We saw just that happen with our lead generation trip from May of last year, which ended up landing a company called Abco. They're a rubber parts distribution center is what they opened in Cedar Falls Industrial Park. They distribute the various rubber parts for different OEMs. They closed on a building in Cedar Falls Industrial Park in January. It's a former CPM Ross campus in it, but former Adams Thermal. They were able to successfully purchase it. We have offered up a ribbon cutting to welcome them to the community. I hope they'll take us up when they get settled in. Timing is everything. When you pair that up with having a product a customer needs, it's successful. In that same realm, we were able to connect the company with Stephanie from our team, who had worked with their team to attract the initial talent management and workforce they needed to get started with their business here in Cedar Falls. This year, we also started pairing lead generation trips with meetings with site selectors. The professionals advise companies on where to expand. It's part of our marketing to the marketer strategy. We currently are finalizing an itinerary to host 3 site selectors in Cedar Valley from September 9th and 11th. So we'll keep you updated on that. Their visit will help us assess our competitiveness for both domestic and international business attraction. They'll evaluate our sites, incentives, tax structure, workforce, and overall quality of life. See how we match up to the rest of the United States and other metro areas our size and larger. You'll receive the Save the Date email later this month. We hope that you'll join us in what we expect to be a valuable and engaging conversation about Cedar Falls' future competitiveness. Last month, we also participated in Select USA Investment Summit, and as most or all of you might know, Shane Graham also came along as well. We exhibited alongside the Iowa Economic Development Authority, and states still reviewing and organizing the booth leads that they received overall. But we had 5 individual one-on-one meetings. That's up from 4 from the previous year. While overall attendance felt smaller, I think the quality of discussion with international companies was stronger, and those that we talked to had a clearer interest in U.S. expansion. Next week, we'll close out our fiscal year with a lead generation trip to the Netherlands, where we have 6 meetings lined up with companies considering U.S. expansion in the future. We're also planning to visit Zyberg Frontline System headquarters as well and make an existing business visit with them. As we move into the new fiscal year, beginning July 1st, we plan to place greater emphasis on foreign direct investment. We look forward to partnering with city staff as well as continuing to promote the Cedar Valley and Cedar Falls on the global stage. Once our budget is approved next month by Grow Cedar Valley's board, we'll be able to share more detailed plans and timelines with you of what we plan for our 2026 lead generation initiatives. Well, we can hold questions till the end, but thank you.
Ms. Skubal.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Adrienne Miller. I'm the Director of Business Services and Advocacy for Grow Cedar Valley. Mostly my primary focus is on existing businesses throughout Black Hawk County. So we are trying to ensure that they have the resources that they need, whether they're struggling with anything, whether it's workforce or anything along those lines, or if they want to expand, that they have those resources and they know what incentive packages are out there, what resources are available out there for them. Historically, we've really focused on manufacturing in the past. We're maintaining that focus, but we're actually broadening our scope of work of businesses that we're actually visiting with. So that includes anybody from, I've actually visited with in-home, at-home workers, just had a cup of coffee with them, seeing they really wanted to get their word or their business out there, seeing what kind of networking opportunities were out there for them, so help them with that, all the way up to those larger manufacturers that are in the community as well. So our primary goal, like I said, is just to provide assistance to them with any needs that they might have for their business, being kind of that resource for them. Since our last visit with you, I believe that was in December, we've completed 41 additional business visits throughout the Cedar Valley. In total, we have 55 visits completed or scheduled this fiscal year, and 22 of those have been in Cedar Falls. Some trends that we're seeing, actually, there's a slowdown. I don't think I need to tell you anybody this. There's a little bit of a slowdown in the ag economy currently, but all of the manufacturers and businesses that we've spoken to that have mentioned this, that have been affected by this slowdown, they are all having a very positive outlook on what the future holds. They're used to the ebbs and flows of the ag economy. They fully believe that we'll be coming back strong again. So despite that slowdown, we're actually seeing a very steady workforce across the board, so across all sectors. So really the only struggle that people are having, or employees are having struggles, or employers are having struggles finding positions for, are those specialty positions. So and they said historically they always have issues with finding those specialty positions. So but overall they're pretty steady with the workforce. One other thing we like to ask about recently is tariffs, if they've seen any kind of effects from the tariffs. We've started asking that right off the bat. I think in early March is when we really started hearing that people were starting to see the effects of them. Some of them seeing as much as a 40% raise in some of their goods and costs for their services. So I'm starting to see a lot of that take place, even more so now that a few months have gone by. We're keeping an eye on that, but that's an ever-changing thing that we're just kind of keeping an eye on and seeing how we can kind of help our businesses as best we can to manage that as well. Last but not least, all these findings that we're actually, when we go out to visit these businesses, all of these findings we actually submit to the Iowa Economic Development Authority. They have a statewide initiative for business visits to note any trends that they're seeing taking place, and this helps them as a state level pivot with any incentive programs or anything along those lines that might need to be adjusted. If they're seeing any big issues arise, then at the state level they can make some tweaks on their end to see if to assist businesses in any way. And we are one of about 15 communities throughout the state that actually submit this data. So I'd like to say we have a good grasp on what's going on at the state level too, and keeping tabs on what's going on across the state. So transitioning over to the advocacy portion of my position too, that kind of ties in with the BRE visits as well. Like I said, we tie in with those trends that we're seeing, and we actually work with legislators as well. This year there was actually legislation at the state level with tax credits, so we were able to kind of voice some opinions on some of the changes that they were making at the state level as well. Able to make a few tweaks and adjustments within that bill, and ultimately give some guidance on that too, so to better help our businesses in our community. We've been working on strengthening our relationships with legislators and different state officials, not only at the state actual government, but also different organizations throughout the state, whether that's ABI or the Professional Developers of Iowa as well. We've had a few visits from these organizations the past few months, and then we will actually continue to have a few more visits scheduled in the coming months as well, so keep an eye out for those. We might be inviting you out to a couple of those visits to celebrate some of our growth and some of our businesses, some of the great things that we have going on here in the Cedar Valley. Some of the things that we do as well on the advocacy side is hold Friday forums and receptions. So Friday forums, we actually bring legislators in to discuss what's going on during the session once a month, just to say, hey, here's an update on what's going on at the state level, what you can see potentially happening with a certain bill or anything, and that just gives you guys an option to really connect with the legislators on a more local level as well. We've had 7 of them so far with over 230 attendees for those. We also have a pre-legislative reception at the beginning of the year in December, I believe. There's about 76 attendees to that as well this past year. And that is where we bring all legislators in to discuss kind of their priorities for the year, for the upcoming legislative year too. So that is something that all of you are more than welcome to come to as well. So you can have those face-to-face discussions with the legislators as well. We actually have one more Friday forum left. That is June 13th, and it will be featuring Dustin Miller with the CWL group out of Des Moines. He is a lobbyist down at the Capitol day in, day out. He works with a number of different organizations and nonprofits and public entities throughout the state. He has a pretty good grasp on a lot of the economic development initiatives, tax initiatives, all of that good stuff that's going on at the legislative level. He'll give us a recap of what happened this year, and then he will also kind of give us a little insight on what we might be expecting from next year as well. So that should be a good one to attend on the 13th. And then this coming fiscal year, just to give you a couple updates too, we plan on doing at least 60 business visits throughout the region. We will be facilitating some quarterly EDO roundtables. This will include city economic development officials, utility officials, Gross Cedar Valley officials, Main Street officials, just to bring everybody together, just to talk about what projects we all have going on, just to keep everybody on the same page that we're all working together and maintaining that unity within the region. We also are looking at doing some corporate headquarter visits too. I'm going to take a look at where all of the corporate headquarters are for a lot of our manufacturers and businesses in the Cedar Valley, see if we can actually go visit those wherever they might be throughout the nation. And then also just more marketing and business visits and advocacy in general. Some of this will be live updates of what's going on. Some of it will be just kind of educational things about how to talk to your legislators or anything along those lines of what is BRE, what is advocacy, just some of that basic stuff. It can be kind of intimidating for some people, so we would just want to get that educational piece out there as well. And then last but not least, we are going to plan on a few additional opportunities to get in front of the state legislators and different state organizations as well throughout the next year. So be on the lookout for that. We'll be sending some invites out to all of you, I'm sure, just to kind of get you in the know and get some FaceTime with those state officials as well. So with that, I will pass it over to Stephanie from our team.
Thank you.
Good evening, Stephanie Detweiler, Director of Talent and Workforce for Grow Cedar Valley. Just a few initiatives that I wanted to highlight for you all tonight that I'm excited to share about. Our first one is Cedar Valley Intern Connect. So last year was our first year doing our Intern Connect, which is basically an opportunity for businesses around the Cedar Valley to send their interns to this program. The goal of the program is to connect interns to the Cedar Valley so they might look at it as a place they'd want to move to after they graduate from college, and also connect with other interns while they're here for the summer so they can build relationships and have a good summer here. Last year, we had 30 participants in the program. 100% of them reported that they felt more connected to the Cedar Valley after going through the program, so that was definitely successful. We heard really positive feedback from both employers and from interns. And this year we have 19 businesses so far that are sending their interns to us, and out of those, 11 of them are ones that sent them last year. So that just shows that the ones that have sent them before see the value in sending their interns. And I do believe the City of Cedar Falls is sending an intern this year, so that's awesome, and we're excited to have them. For this year, 2025, we actually had the opportunity to partner with UNI's Nonprofit Leadership Association. They had been looking for projects for their second semester class, and so they chose ours, the Intern Connect event, as a project for them to basically kind of help plan and get more, give us some feedback on the programming. So that was kind of fun to do this year. I got some good feedback from those students, and so they helped me think of different ways to do the program this year. So far we have 32 interns signed up for this year, so more than last year, which is great, and we still have a few days of registration available. The core programming will be the same, so the mayors were definitely a rave review, Mayor Hart and Mayor Loddick, so I'm looking forward to them being there next Tuesday. And most of everything will be the same. We've done a little bit of less presentations because we got feedback from the interns on that. And one thing we're excited that we're adding this year is having the interns create a Cedar Valley bucket list for them to complete while they're here this summer. So just something fun. The next thing I wanted to talk about is our young professionals, Cedar Valley Young Professionals. So the mission of CVYP is to connect, engage, and empower young professionals across the Cedar Valley through professional development, networking, and community involvement. So this group has come under Grow Cedar Valley since January of this year, and it's really been successful. So really, I think we all know that to have a great workforce and have a good pipeline, we really need to have young professionals in this community, and so this is an opportunity for them to network with each other, build relationships, and hopefully, want to stay here in the community. The core programming for CVYP so far has been Wake Up YPs. We've done 2 of those, and again, the mayors were a hit was that 2 weeks ago, I think? And then the other thing that we've done is networking opportunities or socials for them to just kind of network with each other. So we've had 5 events so far in 2025, and I think it's 274 young professionals that have attended those 5 events. So really good success. We're gaining momentum. So July 1st, we will actually start with a membership program. And so the membership is open to any young professional in the region. The cost for an individual that is not a GVC or Grow Cedar Valley member would be $90. And then if they are a Grow Cedar Valley investor, then it would be $75 per person. And there's lots of different opportunities for different packages and things with that. So yeah, really overall going well, and we're excited to see kind of what the future holds with that. We do have an advisory council of 5 individuals that are helping guide the programming and the work for that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, I think I mentioned this last time I was here, and we were just kind of in the beginning stages of it, but our population study. And so last year, a little over a year ago when we were doing our strategic planning, we decided that Grow Cedar Valley had a great opportunity to do a population study for the region based on some data that we found through Lightcast, a data source that we subscribe to. Basically, it projected that the Cedar Valley will decline in population for the next 5 years. and that all the other metros, with the exception of the Quad Cities, will be growing in the next 5 years. And so we looked at that as an opportunity for us to do something at Grow Cedar Valley, and so we decided to hire a consulting firm to kind of help us understand why that's happening and help change the trajectory of it. And so the first step we did was we had a steering committee, which Mayor Loddick is a part of, and we came together in October to define the scope and objectives of the population study. In January, we created an RFP and sent that out to get consultants interested. We had 15 really strong consultants send RFPs, and then from there, we basically got it down to 5 that we wanted to interview, and so we had a small group from the steering committee interview those 5 consulting firms, and then from there we decided on Civic Soul, who's based out of Austin, Texas. The main reasons we did pick Civic Soul is 2. One, like I mentioned, Lightcast, that data source we subscribe to, they actually partnered with them and will be utilizing them through this process, which is great because it helps kind of with the sustainability of after this is done, we'll be able to continue to measure results over time. The other reason was that they had a really great approach with involving stakeholders and having it be something that we actually implement with our stakeholders as opposed to just like a plan that they give to us and we have to figure out how to do that and get people bought in our community. So they are scheduled, Civic Soul is scheduled to have their first site visit here in the Cedar Valley, June 24th to the 25th, so that's coming up in a few weeks actually. And during that, we're gonna have 12 different roundtables of different topics for them to basically engage with our community and kind of get feedback and thoughts and everything. There's like I said, 12 different groups, so like manufacturing, hospitality and tourism, young professionals, education and training, housing, those are just amongst the few. But one of them will be region leaders, and so I will be asking all of you, if you're available and interested, to attend one of these roundtables. You'll get an email from me in the next few days, because we asked the same of the Waterloo City Council as well, and the mayor and the city administrator for Waverly as well. So anybody that would like to be a part of it, we'd love for you to join. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Detweiler. And Suzanne, do you have a few more comments?
Just
or do you
a
want me
few.
to open it up?
Just a few. So thank you for that. I think you've heard some of the things that we've been working on in this last year, and we had a very aggressive plan for the things that we wanted to accomplish in the last year, specifically around our economic development efforts. And as we come into our next fiscal year, that plan is only going to be more aggressive as we're looking for new and different ways to get out and market the Cedar Valley, to market Cedar Falls to the country, and then even beyond that, looking internationally. So in addition to targeted marketing trips, we're really going to be focused on making sure that we hone in on the story that we're telling about the Cedar Valley and what makes it a great place for a business to call home. So really excited about where we're going with that effort. In addition to all of the things that we're doing to support businesses here locally through all of the things that Adrian talked about with our business services, but also our community development efforts with our ribbon cuttings and the things that we do to get out and really uplift and highlight the incredible things that make the Cedar Valley a great place to work, have a business, and call home. So with that, I'd really just like to say thank you. We appreciate your partnership, and we're honored to be able to represent the Cedar Valley, to represent Cedar Falls on our travels abroad, both stateside and to other countries, and really just here in the community. It is an honor to be able to talk about the incredible things that make Cedar Falls and the Cedar Valley a great place to call home. So with that, we open up for questions.
Thank you. And I'll open it up to council if you have any questions, comments. Thank you. Yep, go ahead.
On the lobbying effort, that was June 13th, was it? And where's that going to be?
Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa, so just down on Green Hill, just out of Green Hill.
Okay.
And I can forward you the invite too. I think I've got it.
The email, okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments, questions from council? Otherwise, I'll just say again, thank you guys for all the work you do. I know, especially to the additional communication lately, getting all of us looped in on all the ribbon cuttings, everything going on. It's been a big help for making sure we can get out there and be more present in the community. So appreciate you.
Super. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move to item number 2 on the agenda. We have the fiscal year 2026 cash management report from Lisa Rothing. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. Tonight's the annual review of the cash management report for fiscal year 2026, and the objectives. There we go. The objectives we're going to cover tonight, we do this annually. We're going to review the investments and rate of returns. We're going to review cash reserves and provide a snapshot of a financial position for 2026. And we're also going to review some capital expenditure. Why do we do this review? Sorry. The city's cash position generally tends to increase with the expansion and decrease with recessions. It is also affected by policy, legislative changes, emergencies, natural disasters, and the forecast of cash balances are basically based on historical, seasonal plans and budget plans, projected economic and other fiscally relevant conditions. It is when these cash balances deviate from this that we are able to learn something new is about to emerge. During this cash management review, we look at anticipated cash receipts and disbursements. We want to consider all funds, but this actual report does, however, concentrate on 9 major funds. And we want to consider timing of current cash receipts and disbursements, and we will look at maturing cash and reserves and having those available when we need them. The city's short-term excess funds are pooled together into a checking account at Farmers State Bank and 3 liquid money market accounts. We do invest in certificate of deposits. We currently have a rate of return of 4.6%, and this is down from last year's fiscal year 24 at 5.29%. So we have seen a slight decline in our interest rates over the last 12 months. There we go. To engage our investment strategy, we want to make sure we look at cash flow needs, investing in accordance with the Iowa statutes, federal regulations, the city's investment policy, and we also want to monitor the current market conditions. In managing public funds, we want to be good stewards of this, and we look at these 3 principles when we do it. We want to protect the principal. We want to make sure that we do get our funds back after investment. We want to optimize our earnings, but we also want to provide safety and liquidity. But we do want a good rate of return. And we want to provide liquidity to cover our ongoing or unexpected cash needs. Reserves are an important tool of long-term management planning and sustaining the city. We have 3 financial policies in holding cash reserves. The first one is that we want to hold the cash reserves for our current obligations, whether it's outstanding accounts payable or for employee salaries. The largest property taxes are received in October and April, so the cash reserves do bridge the gap between those months. Second reason for holding cash reserves is to protect for uncertainties, local disasters, downturn in the economy, legislative changes, takeaways. Those are all things that we want to make sure that we have cash reserves to plan for. The third reason is holding cash reserves is the it is a part of the bond rating. So the city has a AAA rating, and we were able to maintain that for this last fall's bond sale, and we did receive that upgrade in 2020 with the bond sale then. But the upgrade was attributed to our financial position and our cash reserves. Now, how much money is enough to have liquid? We want to make sure that we do have enough for our regular operating costs. We want to make sure we have enough to cover any inflation. The CIP for calendar year 2024 is down to 2.95 from calendar year 23, which was at 4.14%. And we want to make sure that we have money for future opportunities, matching funds for grants that we may participate in. And if we have any unfunded mandates, such as legislative change that might happen at the State House. And we also want to have money for capital planning for future capital projects. Fund balances are reviewed annually with our final audit numbers, and those final audit numbers will come forward to you late August, early September. It is the city's position to maintain those cash reserves in the general fund between 15 and 25%, and that is for cash flow and emergency purposes. In fiscal year 2023, the council at that time directed staff to move towards the upper end of that threshold to the 20 to 25% for our reserves. We also maintain cash reserve balances in these funds, 20 to 30% in the refuse fund, 65 to 75 in the sewer fund, 20 to 30 in the street construction fund, and 10 to 20% in the stormwater fund. And emergency reserves, we like to maintain a $1.5 million to $2 million balance. These two are financial decisions that help cover operating costs, emergency needs, and also help towards our bond rating. Here's a projection of the fiscal year 2026 cash balance. The city's cash usually comes in a familiar cycle, like I mentioned before. October and April, we received property tax payments, and we also make predetermined payments throughout the year, such as our debt service payments are done in December and principal payments are done in June. Capital expenditures are made in accordance with our multi-year capital improvements plan. That is found, a highlight of those is found on pages 50 through 54 in the book that you received. Management makes a concerted effort to limit these capital expenditures to the months when revenues are high during the April, November, and April through May, or excuse me, October, November. And departments adhere to a scheduling process unless there is an emergency. Departments will watch the current economy to see if any of the vendors do pass along any of the tariffs when they do make some of these purchases. Part of the capital expenditures is the vehicle maintenance program. It is the 35th year for this program. Departments are able to extend the life of vehicles longer, but this is a planning document. They create this for a multi-year plan, and from this they develop the schedule and they try to adhere to it, but sometimes needs change throughout the year. And again, staff will monitor any supply chain issues that might come from the economy. So in summary, the cash management report provides available information about the past, present, and future direction of the city's investments, cash reserves, and capital expenditures. We will want to keep an eye on our cash reserves, help watch the risks available for unplanned, unavoided expenditures and any revenue interruptions we might see. Just a reminder that we're going to watch the rollback of state backfill that will end in fiscal year 2029. And then we will continue to monitor the conditions, watching for inflation and how they might affect the city and our purchasing, as well as any future state legislation that has to do with property tax. I would like to specifically thank Stacy Braun Wagner, who is our accountant, who she helped me prepare this report. And tonight I am seeking a motion to recommend this for approval at the next council meeting. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions, comments, conversation from council?
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Appreciate that. Question I have for yourself or maybe Jennifer on the bond rating review process we go through. Are there any comments by the people doing the review if we have maybe excess money stashed away more than we need? Because we're tying up working capital. And it's one of the things that, we can get a AAA rating, AA rating, but you can have excess money that kind of cripples us on what we can do. And we just have money sitting there making minimal interest. That's a key balancing act in our finances. So is there any comments that?
I would say we've never heard about having too much reserves. I think if you're Moody's and you're pretty conservative, I think they're probably always going to think reserves are good. So I wouldn't say that we've ever heard them say that we have excess.
Okay. It would be good if we asked them maybe to see what their input would be on that.
We sure can. I mean, we know that coming up in the next presentation, we're going to be hearing a lot about how much we're going to spend and probably bond for. And
Sure.
The tough part about that might be the requirements for debt service. A lot of times with those big bond sales, you'll have to have a certain amount that you're actually holding in reserve in case you can't make those debt payments. So those are going to be pretty significant when we talk about some of those significant dollars. So, but sure, we can ask in the next bond sale. Yeah.
We set aside money in reserves, but then what's the stipulations that we can dip into it? Does it have to be tornadoes and hurricanes if we have those up this far? But, what stipulation can we lower these for a short term to 10% or, use them up if we need to?
And we can look at that as a goal-setting conversation, because that's really where we set those policies.
Yeah, but I'm just curious in the okay. So, fair enough.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions, comments, thoughts from council?
I have a quick question for Lisa or John. Great presentation. You said we have 1.5 to 2 million in reserves. How much do we have in reserves? And are we still aspiring to get to 3 million or not necessarily?
I think you're referring to what we called the emergency reserve fund. For years, we called it our flood emergency, and then we determined we can have other emergencies besides just floods. So I think, Lisa, in your presentation, right, we had the 1.5 to 2 million, and that's about right where we're at with that particular fund. Overall, of course, we have much more in total for reserves, because she talked about sewer and refuse and all them too. But for that specific fund, emergency reserve fund, I believe we're about right at that 2 million that we have.
Okay. Brian Heath doesn't need to come up to the microphone, but on the vehicle management, my hat's off to Brian and his team, because I see a Dodge truck running around town. Dodge hasn't made a truck under Dodge in almost 50 years. So, well done there.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other conversation, thoughts from council? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion to approve. Move forward with bringing this.
Second.
Motion seconded. Any additional discussion from council? Seeing none, any from the public? Also seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. We'll move to item number 3, wastewater treatment facility project. Now that we've talked about saving money, let's talk about the opposite of that. It's all yours, Director Schrage.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
So tonight I'm going to give a brief introduction to our consultant, Strand and Associates. So about a little over a year ago, we entered into a contract with Strand for a facilities plan. That's really the step one of moving forward into the design contract of the full plant upgrade project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Randy Wirtz with Strand and Associates.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. It's a pleasure to be here. There we go. All right, thank you. So as Chase said, we've been working on this for a little over a year already. And we're going to walk through kind of the whole project tonight, as well as the history of the plant and kind of the needs for the drivers for the project itself. So the drivers we'll start with, we'll talk about the drivers, then we'll go through the facility overview. We'll talk about the recommended upgrades. We won't get into a lot of detail, but enough to really give a good understanding of what's going to happen down there. We'll talk about the costs, which I know you've all seen, and that'll be a big topic. And then the schedule and the overall project benefits. So the project drivers, it's an old plant, and I'll get into that in the next few slides, but the existing processes you have there can't meet the future limits that are being required by the DNR. Also can't be expanded very readily, and you will need additional capacity. The facility really is operating very close to its full capacity. As you're aware, it's been there for decades. It hasn't been upgraded for a few decades, really, significantly at least, and we're getting to the point where you have a lot of infiltration and inflow. That's the clear water that comes into the system. It inundates the plant at times. The pollutant loadings are nearing design capacity. You have population projection increases. We look 20 years out. That's the traditional timeline for a facility plan like this, and it's expected to grow about 20% to about 48,000 people. And then we're setting some reserve capacity for industrial growth in the city. The plant is old, and I'll go over some slides in a minute, and it's antiquated. It's lasted well beyond the normal life of a treatment plant. Traditionally, the concrete structures can last decades, and they do last decades. They have lasted decades. The equipment, though, typically lasts about 20 years, and much of the equipment is well past 20 years. Some of it's 40, 50, and 60 years old. So it's lasted well. It's served you well for a long time. And then we're trying to minimize the impact on the downtown area. You have a beautiful downtown area. I've spent a lot of time down there over the last year, and it's fantastic. But we want to reduce any kinds of odors, truck traffic, and just increase the aesthetic appeal to the community. So I'm going to go over a little bit of history here. Perhaps you're all very well aware of this, but it's been 17 years since the nutrients and nutrient removal from a wastewater treatment plant has been in the news in Iowa. Many other states have been dealing with it for a long time. Iowa's a little bit late to the game, and then they've had this very, very long implementation phase. So back in 2008 is when the city first started hearing about nutrient requirements at the treatment plant. In 2010, you undertook a master plan. That plan identified two phases of construction. The first was a UV and biosolids project that was implemented about 10 years ago successfully, and it's still operating. And as you'll see, that all of those facilities will be maintained in the new plant. And then phase two is this nutrient reduction, and that's the big phrase that we keep talking about. That was decided to be delayed until you really need to do something else at the plant. You need capacity or some other reason just beyond just nutrient removal. So that's kind of where we're at today. In 2014, your permit, you have a permit to discharge to the Cedar River, that required you to study nutrients in detail. And that was when you did your first plan. I think it was written in 2016. That plan also included two phases, neither of which have been done yet. Phase one was for digestion upgrades at about $10 million, and then phase two was, again, this nutrient reduction strategy that needed to be implemented. In 2016, the price tag that was put on it, in today's dollars, is about $130 million. So inflation, actually at construction projects at treatment plants, inflation is actually outpaced in normal inflation. It's actually gone up faster, so that's how we get to 130 million. That's just looking at consumer price indexes. In 2019, again, you got another permit. The permits are every 5 years, and so DNR required you to update that nutrient plan. And in 2021, that plan was done. The budget then was about $95 to $112 million. They gave you a range. And again, in today's dollars, that's 138 to 162 million. So trying to compare apples to apples here. And then in 2025, which is the project we're talking about right now, we updated that plan. Plus, we took a deep dive into the entire plant because it's old and everything needed work on it. And in today's dollars, the price tag is currently about 146 million. So it hasn't changed a whole lot over that time frame. And I thought that would be interesting to just walk through. So the facility overview, it's a 3-stage trickling filter plant, which may or may not mean anything to you, but it's old technology. It's worked well for a long time. It's a low-cost operating technology that was put in at a lot of plants, particularly in Iowa. There's still a few of them out there, but almost all of them will be phased out in the next 10 years. And you have UV disinfection. That was 10 years ago that was put in. You discharge to the Cedar River. The first pipes were put into the ground in the 1890s. The first facilities go back to 1939. You still have 2 buildings or 2 structures out there that are still in use. So that's, 80-some years. Pretty good life out of those structures. Major expansions were in 1952, so everything in yellow is 1952. That was the main biological treatment system. In 1962, 10 years later, you built everything in green, which increased the capacity, loading capacity of the plant to some degree. 1984 was really the last major expansion. That was 40 years ago. That's really what your capacity increase, and you put in even better treatment at that time, still sticking with the trickling filter technology. And then 1997 was a smaller project, and then the last significant amount of money you spent on the plant was 10 years ago on that phase 1, biosolids and UV disinfection. So you can see it's a lot of colors up there, but most of the plant is quite old and has served you very well. So facilities to be eliminated, everything in red there. So the trickling filter system, I mentioned, it's a great technology, or it was a great technology, can't really be expanded on this site, and it won't remove nutrients. So it really doesn't have a future at this plant. The existing headworks building, it's right in the middle of the site. It's very old and antiquated. It's some of the oldest facilities at the site. It's in a prime area where we need that space for other systems, and to increase the capacity here would be very difficult, and the hydraulics throughout the way the water flows through the plant, it just wouldn't work leaving it there. So we're proposing a new headworks to replace that. The tertiary digester, that's from 1939. It's not only 80 years old, but it's a tiny little tank that really doesn't serve much purpose for the new plant. And then the primary clarifiers will be removed. They're not needed in the new process or the new proposed process, and they are a source of odors to the plant, and they're kind of close to the entrance and close to the downtown area, so there's a benefit to getting rid of those primary clarifiers. Facilities to be reused, there's everything in blue here. I don't need to go through a ton of detail, but we're keeping most of the stuff that was built in the 1984 upgrades. A lot of those facilities will be reused, including the operations building. The equalization tank is the big tank down on the bottom. And then several structures throughout. Again, I don't think we need to go into detail. Some of them will be repurposed. You have anaerobic digestion now. We're planning to keep those tanks. They're big tanks. In decent shape, and we can rehab them and use them for something else in the new plant. As I mentioned, a primary objective is to address odors. You've already addressed odors in your previous plant, but it still is the type of processes you have now are fairly odorous and can generate a lot of odor. So the primary clarifiers I mentioned, those will be eliminated. The first stage trickling filters will be eliminated, and that's where most of the treatment happens, in those sections right there right now. And that's why they kind of smell, because they're loaded very heavily with pollutants. The anaerobic digesters I mentioned will be repurposed for different uses in the new plant. The headworks will be relocated. I'll show you that in the next slide. And then the biosolids storage, that's a big, if you drive through the plant, the big open concrete slabs, that's where you store biosolids. And anytime you store biosolids outside, uncovered and uncontrolled, it can generate a lot of odors, especially when you start hauling those solids and move them and allow those odors to escape the piles. All right, the proposed site plan, first the demo facility. So we tried to hide all the facilities we were getting rid of here. Everything in green here will be gone. So you can see that opens up a lot of area in the site to do other things. The repurposed facilities are in blue, so you can see we're keeping a fair amount of the plant in service, especially the stuff that you built 10 years ago and even some of the stuff back to the 1984 project. The recommended improvements are in the dark blue then. And the major portion, I guess I'll get into the details of this in a little bit, and then potential future improvements, and I'll touch on this, but in purple, these were originally part of the plan and they got pulled out as we started to look at what's really needed here, but those are potential future projects, some of which probably will happen at some point, some of which may never happen, so it's a good reason not to do them now if they may never be needed. All right, moving into the recommended upgrades and benefits. We started with 8 full plant alternatives, so we really did a deep dive into a lot of different things you could do with your plant, including keeping the plant generally the way it was. And we narrowed that down to a couple of alternatives, and really we based it on cost, what was not only the capital cost, but what is it going to take to operate and maintain the facility over 20 years. And then we looked at other non-monetary issues like odors. What is the odor potential? How well does it meet future limits? Can it be expanded? How does it fit on the site? There's a lot of things that are not necessarily directly cost related, but that also played into the decisions. So really what we wanted to look at is we wanted to increase the plant capacity to meet your population and have some industrial reserve into the future, 20 years into the future. And it's really 25 years. We use a 20-year 2050 projection, so it's really a 25-year plan. We wanted to meet the DNR requirements for nutrient removal. Again, this goes back 17 years when they started talking about it, just getting to the place now where it's going to be needed. Biosolids drying, and what that is right now, you produce essentially a soil, a dirt, and it's fairly wet, and it's stored outside, and when it rains, it gets re-wet. And you have to haul all of those trucks out. And what drying does for you is it takes that material and makes it 90% dry solids. And I won't get into a lot of details, but that eliminates probably 3 out of 4 trucks that need to be taken out of the plant. So it really reduces the amount of hauling you have, reduces the odor potential, and it produces a product that can be used almost anywhere. It's called a Class A or Class 1 product that you can use on soil beds and as fertilizer. People can pick it up, so there's a lot of options for using it. We wanted to improve the aesthetics of the plant, reduce odors, and reduce truck traffic. And I got a little bit ahead of myself in the last bullet. And then we wanted to simplify it. While it's not an overly complex plant, there's a lot of unit processes throughout the plant. The new plant has a few major processes. It'll have much, much less equipment, less maintenance requirements, and it'll be easier to operate and provide better flexibility. And then a new administration building, and that's the square up on the north end of the site. It's going to be close to the entrance so that the public can come to that facility without having to drive all the way through the plant. And it'll provide offices and a new lab and other things. So the factors impacting the cost, we took a lot of time to put together the cost opinions and make sure we were comfortable with it because it's been a crazy couple of years in the contracting world. Inflation has well outpaced normal inflation that we're talking about. And part of that, the reasons for that are all up here. You have a small site. It's not an easy to build on site because you don't have a lot of room. You can't just build something new and then take the old stuff out of services. So there's going to be a lot of coordination during construction. And I just mentioned that the construction sequencing adds both complexity, and anytime you add complexity, you add cost to contractors. You have poor soils at the site. A lot of the structures are built on piles, deep foundations, and/or piles that add a lot of cost to the construction. But those were factored into the cost, so we feel like we've covered those. Contractors are busy. It's for a project of this magnitude. We've actually seen a little bit of softening in the market, which is good. We've been getting more and better bids on our project. But they are still busy, and a project of this size does limit the number of contractors that will bid it. They're not a dime a dozen. These are big contractors who are used to doing this kind of work. So we're hoping that you get 3 or 4 bids on it, and that would be fantastic. The Build America, Buy America, or BABA requirements, that along with tariffs are going to drive some uncertainty. Now, this job won't be bid for about 2 years. So by that time, we think the tariff stuff will at least be known and hopefully behind us. If not behind us, at least they'll be known and you can better budget for them. The Build America, Buy America, we don't think you're going to have to meet those requirements. You'll have to meet American Iron and Steel for sure. We did price in the BABA requirements into the estimate. Because we're not sure yet, the DNR hasn't told us, or the Iowa Finance Authority hasn't told us yet whether this project will need to meet BABA. All right, then getting into the fun stuff. Recommended capital improvements. So we have 3 columns here. The one on the left, the total initial cost, that was the first cost opinion we put together for this, which included everything. And you remember I put some purple structures up there that said we could do these in the future. And that's what's been pulled out of the project as a placeholder for the future if and when they are needed. And we think the recommended improvements, which is with the red box around it, it's about $146 million. We think that's the appropriate scope and budget for this project. And then those deferred and or eliminated costs, about $27 million. Everything up here is in $2025, so it has not been inflated to a future bid date. Wanted to just touch on construction manager at risk. This was approved in Iowa, I think 2 years ago, to do public projects, treatment plant projects specifically, under a CMAR delivery method. Strand has some experience with that. I'm working on a project almost this exact same size in Ohio right now. It's a CMAR project. Typically what that means is it's different than your traditional bid project. You hire a contractor at about the 30% design. So that's about a year from now. Next spring is when you'd be starting to interview contractors and then pick one to come on board as part of your team. They are paid a fee, and that fee can vary greatly, that we found out. But their fee is to work with you from 30% to 100% design to find ways to make the project either more affordable or to save money during the project. And so their goal is to save you money between 30 and 100%. The biggest benefit that we've seen from doing this is it establishes a project budget, a more accurate project budget earlier in the project. Because we're engineers, we're not building it. We can put all of the costs together we want, and we're usually very good at that. The last couple of years has been challenging. And so having that CMAR on board early is a benefit, because at the 30% mark, they're going to have a budget put together, and then they'll be working off that to get to 100%. And if we see that we need to cut a little bit, then you can work with the contractor to find better ways to do that. We're not proposing it for this job. We're just putting it out there as an option. And we have about a year, 9 months to a year, really to get into the details of the project, to develop up to about 30%, and then figure out if CMAR is the best option for you all. There are a lot of contractors who are interested in it because they see it as a way to work with the city. And if the city decides to do all of their projects CMAR in the future, they will have a leg up on the other contractors because the city will know them. They don't just have to be low bid on bid day. So there's a benefit to the contractor and to the community, but it's not a good fit for every project. So I think we should take the time and figure out if it is here.
I guess one thing I'll add to that is CMAR is kind of new to Iowa. I know they've been doing it in Illinois or Wisconsin, Ohio. It's one of those things that you can estimate the project cost being $145 million, and bids on bid day may come in at $200 million. So CMAR will allow for a more definitive price, starting at 30% design all the way to 100%, that will have a known cost on bid day. So I just wanted to run through the schedule that we kind of have outlined moving forward. So obviously Strand is finishing up that draft plan, and which Randy covered tonight. And then we would like to move into a design contract with Strand at some point in the near future. Keep in mind, design of a project is generally between 8 and 10% of the construction costs, so that's fairly significant. And then the design phases moving forward would start in July. And the construction that we have laid out before us would be, the final bid documents would be in the summer or fall of 2027. It will be a 2-year design phase for the size of project. And then targeting a bid date of fall of 2027. And then following beginning construction in early calendar year 2028. And it is tentatively a 3-year project that we have laid out right now. So looking at completion in 2031. So with that, I know we have Tyler here as well, but we would entertain any questions.
Okay, open up to council for thoughts, conversation.
Go ahead, Daryl. Then I'll go.
Thanks for the presentation, appreciate it. The CMAR component of this, you said that, what was the costs involved with that, or how does that get incorporated into this?
So it's similar to hiring a consultant. You would bring a contractor on board, you would interview them as part of an RFP process, bring a consultant on board for a fee. And then as part of that fee, they would work with the design firm and the city on each step of the project to either value engineer it or give you a bid price in every step of the way. You know, as we go through the plan development, they say the way you have it designed right now is going to be $135 million. There's ways to cut it in X, Y, and Z. They'll point out where you could cut costs potentially.
So they would fit in with everybody involved so far and complement and critique, basically, is what you're saying?
Yep, they'd be part of the design team throughout the whole process. Yep.
And is there a preference from you folks of those you've worked with, or are there?
So we don't have a ton of experience with it. I'm going through my first project now. We're at about the 60% design, so they've been on board for a few months now. It's been both frustrating and a good experience because it's frustrating because they come up with a lot of ideas that were already passed, and then they're looking at it. So you end up reworking some things, but I do think in the end, it's going to be a very good process. And the benefit is, again, as engineers, we're not actually building it. We're not hiring subcontractors to build it. So until you get a bid from them, you don't know. And the contractors who your CMAR contractor would have those relationships. They'd already have subcontracts worked out, and they would actually get actual bid costs. Now, what you might be thinking is, well, they can charge you anything because you don't know, right? But they actually they can't self-perform anything on the job. So on day one, you know how much money they're going to make, you know what their profit is on the job, and you know what their estimate of the total work is. They have to bid everything, including any jobs, any work that they typically do. So if they're a general contractor and they usually do all the concrete on the job, they still have to bid that to multiple subs, and they have to bid it themselves, and they have to submit their bid first, and then they get other bids, and the owner, the city, would open those bids. So it's not like they can just say, I'm self-performing 80% of the work. They can't self-perform anything unless they're the low bid on each of the contracts.
So they're acting as a general.
They act as a general, yes.
And then how much experience in Iowa? It's new to Iowa, you said?
It's pretty new to Iowa. So the first big job that I'm aware of is Sioux City. And that was a couple $100 million project. I don't know how that's going. I haven't talked to them at all. That was, I think, just awarded probably a year ago. So I don't actually know if they're even in construction yet. Des Moines is starting to do it. Des Moines has been having real problems getting contractors to bid on their work. I don't exactly know why. We haven't done much work with Des Moines yet. But the last several requests for proposals to engineers that have come out have all said we're planning to use CMAR on these projects. Cedar Rapids, and if you're familiar with what happened in Cedar Rapids, they just bid their estimate was $270-some million, and it bid at $340 million, and the next low was $430 million or something. So there's just this massive range. Had they done CMAR, I think that would have been a much better outcome for them.
So where have these firms started? Out east and they're working their way through the Midwest, or what?
Great question. I don't know the answer to that. So we don't work on the East Coast. We do a lot of work in Ohio. It's been common in Ohio for a while now. And in fact, I would say it's probably the preferred route in Ohio for larger projects like this. I think most of them are going CMAR, not all of them.
And you find them paying for themselves, presumably?
That's the goal. I mean, that's what, that's their sell, right? They'll pay for their fee, yeah. So. I'm sorry, I don't have more information, but I think it's a good process that should be considered.
If there is more information, that could be shared.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'd like to see it. Council would like to see it. Thank you.
Counselor?
So this is probably more for Chase and just for information sharing. What marries us to this location? You've made some comments that it's small, the soil and the foundation has got concerns. What thoughts have we given to, well, is there somewhere else we can go?
Yeah, so a few years ago, we did kind of a regional study, kind of through Black and Veatch at that time, and it was looking at regionalization with Waterloo and what we'd call a new greenfield site, which would be still remain in Cedar Falls, but maybe outside of the downtown area, and then as well as what would it look like remaining in place. And of all of the alternatives, this was the least cost option. There are other options that are a lot more expensive than what we've showed you today.
Thanks.
Thank you, Director. Yep, go ahead.
Director, if you wouldn't mind, talk me through the duration. I know it's more costly to go regional or anything like that, but are we getting any ROI? This is a 25-year plan for this ticket. Was the ticket, 20% more for the exact same duration to go regional, or would there be long-term gains to moving locations?
I don't have that report in front of me tonight, but I'd be happy to provide that to you. I know that it was at least 50% greater cost. Are there long-term benefits? Probably way outside of any of our lifetimes to going regional, but it is a big obstacle to get the infrastructure over to the regional plant.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions? Discussion from council?
What would the timeline look like if we were talking about that CMAR option as opposed to 2 years for design? When would that come into the conversation?
That would be, like Randy mentioned, it would be potentially a year from now that we would have those conversations. And I don't think it would delay the design time at all because the contractor, like I said, is on board as part of the project team at that point.
Yeah, thank you, Director. Any other thoughts, discussion from council?
So many dad jokes.
Mr. Mayor.
Just disappointed that hasn't been at least one. Yep, go ahead.
Glad of Randy. That's good.
So, Chase, a couple years ago when we did the evaluation of new enhanced current and so on, who was involved? It was a different firm involved, you said?
Correct, yep.
Have you had a chance then to look at that to determine if that was a good choice? Between the...
Speaking specifically of the previous project that they did the study on?
Yeah, the new, located elsewhere, downriver, presumably.
Oh, yes, we definitely looked at that. That was actually a 2021 report that had that, and the costs were very clear in that report. To build a new plant was substantially more, and again, I don't have the numbers off my head either. To tie into Waterloo was, I'm going to say 20 or 30% more, maybe 50% more, I don't remember. But yes, I mean, it would be a very difficult project to get there.
I think the big thing was finding a location that was suitable.
Location is always a difficult thing for a big new greenfield plant, yeah. And all the infrastructure comes to here, and now you got to get everything from here over to the new plant and build a new plant, so it's significantly more money.
Mm-hmm. It flows downhill.
I guess in either one of those options, there's still going to the need for infrastructure still at the site downtown here.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so.
Okay, thank you, guys. Any additional questions, conversations, thoughts from council?
Just one last question on my mind, as far as the treated 90+% solids, there's not a ton of ROI on that potential, but have you speculated any of the numbers that would come back from that opportunity?
I don't know that we have those tonight, but I can say that staff, last fall, I believe, we went to Wisconsin Dells and visited a plant that has this process. It's basically where they dry it into a really dry powder, and then you have the potential to pelletize it, and it would be very similar to a Milorganite product that you would find at a farm store. And then in that specific location, I believe they give it out to the residents, and there are some farmers and landscaping companies that come and pick it up. And I guess as part of that, we are seeking a little bit of direction tonight to move forward with the schedule that we outlined and proceed with moving into a design contract, so.
I think I'd motion to move in this direction and bring back those CMAR recommendations, or not.
Second.
Motion and seconded, and any additional conversation from council? All right, seeing none, any from the public? Also seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Strand Associates and team, for making the trip up and for all the work on this. It's a big project, so.
We have a date in July. Was it decided, 7th or the 21st meeting?
Sorry, what was that?
The July council meetings, July 7th or 21st. Do you have a choice on those already?
Yeah, I think we're probably going to target the 7th, but we'll see how far. It's a large contract that we'll have to review and go through, so.
Thank you, Director. And again, thank you, staff, for working on this. I know it's been how many years?
17?
It's just constant. So, all right, we have no other items for the agenda tonight, so I will now adjourn this meeting, and we will be back here at 7 o'clock for our regularly scheduled city council meeting. So, thank you, everyone.